Okay, so we are going to learn how to factor trinomials where the leading coefficient is 1. In other words, the trinomial is going to look like x squared plus some coefficient times x plus another number. So the standard form for that trinomial is going to be x squared plus bx plus c. What I would like to do is I want to give you an example so you can see how a trinomial originates given the factors. In other words, let's just start with x squared plus 5x plus 6, and let's just give you an example how we get to x squared plus 5x plus 6. If we multiply x plus 2 times x plus 3, remember this is foiling and then simplifying, combining like terms, we get x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay? If we do x minus 2 times x minus 3, we get x squared minus 5x plus 6. So what I did was I did all these products so you could see how changing the factors, how that change in the factors brings about a change in the trinomial, in the resulting trinomial. So let's just see how we get this number right here, the coefficient that we have for the x squared. The coefficient for the x squared seems to be coming from multiplying the first times the first. So the first term of the trinomial is the product of the first two terms of the binomial. So 1 times 1 is 1 and x times x is x squared. Okay, so we are finished with the first term of the trinomial. Now let's look at the second term of the trinomial. In this case, we have here a 5. Yes, we're getting here a 5, and to get to 5, I can see that if I add 2 plus 3, I get a 5. Let me use another color so you guys can see it. 2 plus 3, I get a 5. Let's see what happens if I add negative 2 and negative 3, I get a negative 5. Positive 2 and negative 3, I get a negative 1. Negative 2 and positive 3, I get a positive 1. Okay, so the middle term of the trinomial is the sum of the last two terms of the binomials. What about the last term? How do we get to this 6 right here? Well, this 6 seems to be the product of 2 times 3 is 6. Negative 2 times negative 3 is 6. Positive 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Negative 2 times positive 3 is negative 6. So the last term of the trinomial is the product of the last two terms of the binomial. So how would I factor a polynomial looking like x squared plus bx plus c? Okay, so I will factor into the product of two binomials, right? It's going to be x plus a times x plus b. Now, why don't we put here x plus m, okay, plus x plus n. That way we don't repeat variables. And an important thing is that m plus n has to be equals to b. And m times n has to be equals to c. Okay, why don't we do an example so you can see what I mean. So let's suppose that I have to factor this polynomial. Okay, easy. So all I need to do is I'm going to have two binomials. Okay, now I need to look and see whether or not these are going to be positive and negative, or positive or negative and negative. Because the sign is positive, it means that the signs here are going to have to be the same, either positive or negative and negative. So I have to think about the factors of 3. How can I factor 3? Well, 3 can be factored into positive 3, positive 1, right? Remember that 3 is prime, or negative 3 and negative 1, correct? So which one of them should I choose? Remember that when I add them, it has to give me 4. So obviously I'm not going to take the negatives, right? So what I mean to say is that these negatives are going to disappear. I'm going to take the positives, and it's going to be positive 3 and positive 1. 3 plus 1 gives me 4, and 3 times 1 gives me 3. Let's go now and do some examples. So let's start with the first example. Okay, so x and x, I have 2. I can decompose 2 into 2 and 1 and negative 2 and negative 1. Because this number is positive, I'm not going to take the negatives, right? Let me see if these two numbers add to 3. They do, so it's x plus 2, x plus 1. Okay? Now let me factor these. Again, t and t. Correct? So I'm going to see what I have for 21. 21 is different. 21 is no prime. So 21 can be decomposed into 21 and 1, 21 and, actually, let me just go with here. It will be, let me just start. It's going to be 21 and 1 is going to be 7 and 3, right? 21 and 1, negative 21, negative 1, right? 7 and 3, negative 7, and negative 3. Okay? So let's just look and see. We need two numbers that either give me negative 10. Obviously, 21 and 1 I'm not going to add to negative 10. 7 and 3 are not going to add to negative 10. So the numbers are going to have to be negative. This number is no good, so I'm going to take negative 7 and negative 3. Good? Okay, so let's go and do the next example. So again, is A and A. Think of factors of 6 that add up to negative 5. Remember, this number is negative, so I'm going to have a positive and a negative. Correct? So now think about factors of 6 that give me negative 5. Because they have different numbers, remember that 6 can be decomposed into 6 and negative 1, negative 6, positive 1, 2, negative 3, and negative 2, and positive 3. Okay? Well, 6 and 1 are not good, right? Because 6 plus negative 1 doesn't give me negative 5, but negative 6 plus 1 gives me negative 5. So if I have negative 6 and positive 1, I get a negative 5, and the product is negative 6. Let's go with x squared minus 5x minus 36. So I have x and x, correct? And then I have to look for two numbers that give me a negative 36. So it's going to be a positive and a negative. That's the only way to get a negative. Two different signs. So how can I factor 36? 36 can be factored into 6 and negative 6, right? 9 and negative 4, negative 9 and 4, negative 36 and 1, and 36 and negative 1. Okay, I have to pick up two numbers that either give me negative 5. Right away, I can throw those out, right? I can throw those out because they don't add up to be negative 5. But if I add these two, I can see that they add up to be negative 5. So that is the decomposition. Okay, so here we have a polynomial. This is my last example, and this is kind of different because I see the coefficient of 5. But guess what? I can factor that coefficient, okay? If I factor that 5 as a common factor, since all the terms have a common factor, right? The coefficients, they can all be divided by 5. So I will get here 5x, and I will get here a 6. Okay, copy your 5. Now I can factor my trinomial, x and x, to numbers that multiply give me 6. added is going to give me negative 5. So these two numbers are going to have to be negative. Okay? What two numbers that give me 6 multiply give me negative 5 added? Negative 2 and negative 3. And this is the decomposition or the factorization of number 5.